we definitely did not expect to have to do this tonight, but we have some breaking news. This is an emergency episode of the Talkin Heels podcast, and for good measure and for good reason why we're doing this. As you already know, I'm Nick Delahanty. The guy to the right is Jordan Falls. Breaking news: Devontez Tez Walker has been granted eligibility by the NCAA. Listen, when you called me earlier to tell me, I was stunned, especially given that in episode 6 of the show, we went in detail about, how the NCAA is doing him wrong. And, now we could finally say the saga's over.
Yeah, you would thought that we saw this coming with how much detail we spent on Tez Walker and the wide receiver core last night and what impact it would have going into Syracuse. And now, how does this change things? There's a lot to unravel here.
There is. And let's just go through the timeline, because I think that's probably the easiest way to go here. So around 12:45, it was your regular Thursday. Everybody's, getting ready for the weekend, looking ahead to Carolina, Syracuse. The NCAA drops what I want to call a Woj bomb, because Adrian Wojnarowski, it's kind of just fitting. They release a statement that was made by NCAA President Charlie Baker and Division I Board of Directors Chair Jared Moorhead, who is also the president of the University of Georgia. Now, here's what the statement says, and I quote, "It is unfortunate that UNC failed to provide this important information previously. While we must be careful not to compromise a student athlete's right to privacy when it comes to sensitive issues, we want to assure the Division I membership and everyone watching how the new transfer rules are applied, that this meets the new transfer waiver standards. UNC's behavior and decision to wage a public relations campaign is inappropriate and outside the bounds of the process UNC's own staff supported. Had the UNC staff not behaved in this fashion and submitted this information weeks ago, this entire unfortunate episode could have been avoided." Now, of course, this statement makes you think, what didn't Carolina give to the NCAA? Am I wrong?
That's how the statement comes off. Why would Carolina withhold information? They have fought for 8. This has been going on since the spring, essentially, is what we have found out. So Carolina's been fighting for months to get Tez eligible, and they withheld information? That makes no sense.
It didn't make any sense. And at the time, when you read that statement, not knowing what we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes, you kind of felt like the NCAA was kind of pressured into it. They were kind of not happy about it, and they were still taking shots at Carolina.
Yeah, they're ultimately trying to save face here because they messed up. And first of all, we're very happy that Tez is eligible. That's the most important thing here. But trying to make an example of a kid or a situation and the kid's at risk, totally wrong by the NCAA. Essentially, it's what news came out or what information became available. Did Carolina withhold an ace of spade card from the NCAA to make Tez eligible? I don't think that's what happened here.
I don't think so either. And of course, when the news broke and we found out that it was official, everybody was celebrating. Everybody was happy. You saw Drake May. He was one of the first people on social media to post. You had a Mac Brown statement. You had a statement from Tez Walker. But then it started to get a little tricky here. We get a statement from Bubba Cunningham, who basically says, "That NCAA, we didn't withhold information. Why are you blaming us? This is not on our watch." And then Kevin Guskowitz releases a statement, and he basically is kind of, I don't want to say contradicting what Cunningham said, but it kind of just didn't make sense.
Yeah, Bubba's statement is, we're happy Tez is eligible. That's the most important thing. But however, the justification the NCAA says it's not accurate at all. Verbatim, he says the university submitted all of the necessary information as it was made available to them, and at the time the NCAA requested it for the waiver in August. And they're still not sure why the NCAA delayed making the decision, but they're happy they got the response. Essentially, you're wrong. Thank you for agreeing. Let's have a handshake and not look at each other for a few days. And then Kevin Guskowitz, yeah, his statement kind of was like, we submit all the information, but there was new information that became available. So his statement's a little contradictory there.
Yeah, and it just seemed like there were 5 different entities here and nobody had the same exact story. Like, it would have been a very bad police case. It's kind of like a detective interviewing the suspects and they're all telling you different stories. It just did not add up. And then we get wind that this gets even better, that the North Carolina Attorney General, Josh Stein, steps in and basically, I don't want to say bully because that's such a bad word in this day and age, but basically they threatened a lawsuit if this didn't play out. And the NCAA seems to be hiding something, that they were so afraid of having this lawsuit happen that they kind of just fell over and said, you know what, Tez Walker, congratulations. You can play on Saturday. Good luck, buddy.
I think me personally, I think we was kind of shocked to see Carolina respond. And we shouldn't have been, because this whole case has been on public display and they've responded every time the NCAA has said something. So, but the fact that, I think the reason I was a little more shocked is because Tez was eligible and it was kind of like, who cares what happens? Like, we don't need to say anything else. Tez is eligible. But no, Bubba Cunningham went back at him and Kevin Gushwitz. So that part was a little shocking. And then to see Josh Stein come out, and that seems to be that's my impression of what this new information is it's an intent of a lawsuit. And we've seen multiple athletes across the country get these waivers fulfilled as a 2-time transfer that have actually played at 2 schools. And we know that Tez's case is much stronger than those weaker cases. That's kind of like, well, they did it, so if you don't let Tez play, we're coming after you.
It was kind of like 2 kids fighting, this whole situation. The NCAA on one side, they're arguing, and then Carolina going back at them. Was it right how Carolina handled the situation? No. But they felt the need to make this public and to get the word out there because they knew that Tez Walker was being done wrong and done dirty by the NCAA. The fans, how some reacted, and honestly, I don't even want to call them fans because the people that feel the need to threaten somebody over this really can't be considered fans. That's just way too over the top. But when you look at it from a grand perspective, it became a battle of words between the 2 sides. And the NCAA was saying, you know, we don't comment on specific cases, but we're going to comment on this. And then Carolina saying, you know what? You're not looking at all the facts. You're doing him wrong. And it just was such a nightmare from the word go. And the sad thing is, this could have been handled 5 weeks ago. And Tez Walker could have been eligible to play from the word go.
This could have been handled in July. This could have been over months ago, but much less 5 weeks ago. And the fact that they waited this long is just a shame on the NCAA. And they had the opportunity to do the right thing. They did the right thing in making Tez eligible, but then they just had to throw one more punch at Carolina and say, oh, it's your fault that he's not eligible. And so just when you think they want to do one right thing, they just can't admit they were wrong.
Yeah, and you know what? If you're the NCAA in that situation, I might be looking at it from a different perspective. But if they would have just came out and said, you know what? As time went on, we realized that Tez Walker situation was handled incorrectly, or in a way, we didn't have all the proper facts. We have granted him immediate eligibility, and we wish him the best of luck. Nobody would have batted an eye. But to come out and just be petty and try to get that last word, it's just another way of showing that the NCAA, it needs to be revamped. There's just no 2 ways about it.
Yeah, and Josh Stein's letter to the NCAA that brought this about essentially says that he's pursuing or willing to pursue potential antitrust violations against the NCAA and investigate them along with some other attorney generals in sister states. And including federal law. So he basically said, you better make Tez eligible or we're coming after you. So shout out to Josh Stein getting Tez eligible. That's what it took. We should have done it 3 months ago.
Absolutely. But it also begs the question and brings it to more of the forefront. What's the NCAA hiding that they're so afraid of a lawsuit?
Right. And there's probably tons of stuff that we don't even know about that they are hiding. But yeah, they ran from this as fast as they possibly could.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you have a settlement and you know you're guilty and you're getting that settlement, you're just trying to let it go by. Listen, there's no harm of them letting Tez Walker play at this point in the season. There's nothing that's gonna impact them. They made Carolina fans happy because now Tez Walker gets his dream of playing in the Carolina Blue, and this whole situation's over. Now they're thinking, you know what, Mr. Stein, you can back off of us now. We're good. We did what you asked. We're good.
Yeah, at this point, the NCAA is like, well, Tez served a 4-game suspension for doing nothing, so I guess we'll sign the papers and say, yeah, deal. So, yeah, I hate that Tez was a byproduct of the NCAA just being salty and trying to make an example out of Carolina. Essentially, the coaches all across college football asked for this transfer rule to put into place, and the NCAA was like, well, we put it into place, but we're going to make an example that you wanted this. And it's a shame that it came down on the byproduct. A product of him was what we have found out to be a very good kid.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? With all the negative of it, of him having to sit out and him not being eligible, the positive thing that you have to take from this is he's finally going to be able to play. And it's not a full season like he hoped. It's not a full season like we all hoped, but he's going to be able to take that field at Keenan Stadium in front of the home fans and do what he dreamed of doing, and that's playing for Carolina. And at that point, you have to put everything else that happened to the back, and you have to just say, you know what? It's a new day. This is over. They did Tez right, and do we agree with how it went down? No. But now they kind of right the ship and made it right.
Yeah, exactly. So that brings us ultimately to Saturday. Tez found out the day about same time we did, 12:30, 12:45, and so just over 48 hours until kickoff. We know he's been practicing with the scout team, so he's in some sort of game shape. You would have to imagine. Mac has said he's going to play. You would see no reason why Carolina doesn't play him. How's that translate to the football field on Saturday against Syracuse team that we talked about last night?
Listen, I was thinking about this earlier, and you have to think that the 4 games that Tez Walker sat out might have been a blessing for Carolina. And here's why. Number one, Kobe Paysor, JJ Jones, they came into their own. They became viable weapons for you to work with. Nate McCollum, yes, he was injured early on. We really didn't see much. He broke out. Now you put Tez Walker, who, if you look talent-wise, no disrespect to the rest of the room, but Tez Walker's your number 1 target. They brought him in to be a number 1 target. Guy had 950 yards and 11 touchdowns a year ago playing at Kent State. This guy is a baller. He's a legitimate baller. And you add him to the mix, now McCollum's your second option. Kobe Paysor, who could be a number 2 on most teams, is your 3. JJ Jones, who had a big week a week ago, is now your 4th best receiving option. That room's pretty darn deep.
Yeah, you go from having 2 or maybe 3 to you feel like you got 4 solid options. Gavin Blackwell's coming into his own before he got hurt against Minnesota. You got 5 good receivers, or 4 good receivers, and a 5th one that you count on to step up. You got 3 good tight ends. We've seen the running back room. Tez is the most impactful player on this offense outside of Drake May. That's the expectation. And that was the expectation in the preseason coming in. Now you move Pacer back to the slot, become that Josh Downs type of player that you can move on both sides of the line scrimmage, wherever you need to. Get him lined up with a linebacker, and then Tez can take the top off the defense. And it's gonna make it hard for defense to guard and defend these wide receivers. And feel bad for Syracuse because they found out 48 hours before game time that their game plan just got blew up.
But now here's my thing. And again, I make fun of you all the time for looking ahead. And you know it, I know it, I'm not gonna deny it. But if you're Carolina, how much do you really use Tez Walker this week, knowing that Miami's lowering next, and that might be a big advantage if they don't got a lot of film on him?
You got to use him to some extent Saturday because he's got to play.
But well, yeah, you got to play him, yeah, but how much?
I expect him to play over 50% of the snaps. I don't, but playing him and using him in route schemes is totally different. So put him on the field, but maybe don't have him run key routes. Going back to the first week of the season, preseason, they said the coaches have said they had a game plan for Tez and without Tez for that South Carolina game. I think you stick with that game plan without Tez and just move him in that slot. And then whatever that game plan with Tez was, that's for next week. Unless
kind of like
you get in a situation where you have to use it to win the game.
Kind of like they did with McCollum in his, what I like to call his debut, because the first game really wasn't. In his debut, they went to him early and often, and then they noticed they started slowing down a little bit with his workload. I expect Drake May to find him early.
Oh yeah, 100%. I've been interacting with some people on Twitter. If I expect Tez to get a touch within the first 2 snaps of the game.
100%.
If nothing else, to get the crowd involved, because and I'm gonna be lucky enough to be in Keenan Saturday, and this is just making me that more excited for that to see Tez play. But the crowd's already, everybody loves Tez. We know that. So there, to get him involved early, just imagine the reaction that the fan base is gonna have when he gets his first touch, whether it's on a slant, wide receiver screen, a touch pass, whatever it may be. I expect him to get a touch within the first 2 snaps.
Not that they needed any more motivation, but that crowd is going to be lively early on in that game.
Absolutely. And this is something that me and you talked about all fair, was that it's Syracuse. The 2 teams don't have a lot of history between them. Syracuse is 4-1, but they've not really played anybody. So you kind of worried about the crowd a little bit, because it's not a NC State or a Miami or a Virginia Tech opponent name. But it's still a big game, and this just is something else to help fuel the crowd to get behind the team and be something important. The question becomes, and we talked about last night, how Tez has not been a distraction off the field up to this point. Don't let this become a distraction now that he is eligible.
Yeah, you got to flip the coin both ways. That's a very good point. Getting Tez involved is going to be great, but you also have to remember this offense started to get in a rhythm without him. So now you're going to have to catch him up to speed, and you got some tough games coming up. You can't afford to have those miscues. A guy like Tez Walker seems to be somebody who could work on a fly. You mentioned he was working with the scout team. He's ready to play. I just think that it's a matter of getting his feet wet, getting him going, and using him to the best that they could use him, and have another threat, both in the short game and the deep game. When he's on the field, he's a threat, and that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, and I don't really feel like we've talked about this, that the offenses, or both sides of the ball, have got going. They're not playing to their full potential yet. So I don't think it hurts. Like, if they were playing like A+ football and you're sliding this guy in late in the year, then it's like, oh, is he gonna mess up the rhythm? I don't think we're at that point. I think he definitely brings he 100% brings an impact, and I'd be okay if they took a deep shot first play of the game, just let him go on a fly pattern and just let him catch a 60-yard bomb or something would be just as great as a wide receiver screen. But get him involved early, often. Just give him a few easy passes. He's been practicing with the scout team, but is he taking football-type hits in practice? Probably not. So just let him get hit a few times, and just so he gets into a rhythm.
Or if you don't want him to get hit, you could throw him the ball and have him score. Get it.
Take a shot.
Yeah. Take a shot down the field and hope for the best. Now, of course, it's a great day to be a Tar Heel, obviously, with Tez Walker being eligible. But I have one question for you before we kind of wrap this up. Are you going to sleep Friday night going into Saturday?
I usually don't sleep the night before games anyway, because I just am so excited. Tonight's more the real question. I mean, we've known this news now for about 9 hours now, and it's still hard to process. I mean, I just finished lunch. I was just scrolling on Twitter and see Pete Thamel with a tweet. I'm like, this ain't real. Like, where did this come from?
Then you kind of have to look at the tweet and see if it's the real person.
I was like, is Pete Thamel being hacked? Like it was just such a mind-blowing sequence of events, and then all afternoon social media has been blowing up between the fan base and the players and Tez's reaction with Mac and finding out, and you see the joy in Mac's face and Lonnie Galloway, the receivers coach. So everybody's happy for him. I'm excited for Saturday, and I'm excited for Tez. This is really great.
It is, and if you need a reminder of why sports are so great, go watch that video of Tez Walker finding out that he's eligible and go see the hug that he gives Mac Brown and the
Yeah.
embrace. That is true love and care about somebody. You don't make that kind of thing up. That just shows that the coaching staff at Carolina truly cares about those individuals, and they definitely care about Tez. And he was over the moon happy. I think he was shocked, to be quite honest.
I think he was shocked too. His reaction was like, "Where did this come from?" Like, I mean, kind of like the rest of us. Like, this has been going on for months. Like, wow, and that just you hit the nail on the head. The coaching staff cares about the players, and any recruit watching that video and watching this process transpire. I hope every recruit in the country saw that, because that is just another selling point for Matt Brown and this coaching staff, and what makes them so great, and what makes Carolina great, and it's awesome.
I think we could both agree. There was excitement around this team that they're 4-0. They've started off the year great, but that excitement went up 10 times higher with the eligibility status of Tez Walker.
Absolutely. I think that's another key thing to hit on is the team is 4-0 without Tez. And we've talked about like good to great, great to even greater. Tez takes you there, and the fact that you're 4-0 and you've gotten to 4-0 without him makes you feel a lot better. If you would have lost the App State game or the Pittsburgh game, we're probably not as excited about this, because now you're like, well, it would have been nice to have him in those games, and it would have been nice to have him in both of those, but you won those games without him. Now you're adding a piece, and the best analogy that I've been able to compare it to, I've been trying to think of an analogy all day, is a MLB team or NFL team getting a big trade piece at the trade deadline, or getting a player back from injury at the trade deadline, and it's an addition, and it's a great addition to have.
I could give you one because I'm a Yankees fan. Aaron Boone saying that every injury that comes back is a trade deadline acquisition. Aaron Judge comes back, it's like getting a guy at the deadline.
There you go. Exactly. It's the same what it is. That's exactly what we're doing. We're getting a guy at the deadline and heading into a stretch of conference games, 7 of the final 8 of conference games, and the ultimate goal is to make a run for the ACC championship. Tez gives you the ability to do that.
Amen. He does. And you know what? We're happy guys right now. Carolina's got Tez Walker back. He is eligible. He will be on the field on Saturday when the North Carolina Tar Heels take on the Syracuse Orange at Kenan Stadium. Jordan Falls will be in attendance. He's not going to sleep the next 2 nights. I'm going to try to sleep because I'm just excited. But again, it is going to be fun to watch Tar Heels on Saturday as they take the field after the bye week. There's a lot of excitement going on in Chapel Hill, and it's not surrounding basketball. That's a good thing.
Exactly. Now, last night we made predictions of who the lead receiver was and things like that.
Sheesh.
Does this change your prediction at all?
All right, I'm going to say that J.J. Jones still leads them in receiving. I don't think that they're going to throw Walker in and have like a Nate McCollum type of game. I'm going to still say J.J. Jones, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Tez Walker get like 70 to 75 yards and a touchdown, because he's going to find the end zone.
Does he find the end zone?
He's going to find the end zone. What's your prediction here?
I'm gonna stick with I'm gonna go the same rate you went. I'm gonna stick with my original prediction of Kobe Paysor. I think this opens up Paysor more for targets in the slot and more opportunities to get the yards. But Walker finds the end zone.
I think he will, and we'll just have to wait and see. Saturday afternoon in Chapel Hill. You know we'll be locked in. We hope that you follow us on Keeping It Heel and wait for our next show where we're going to talk about Tez Walker's debut. Hopefully it's after a win, and hopefully he has a big debut.
Absolutely.
This will wrap up the emergency episode of the Talkin Heels podcast. I got to ask, did you like the little breaking news?
Yeah, breaking news. That was awesome. And this is a back-to-back weeks with 2 episodes. This is great.
We are killing it. And of course, I didn't show Jordan before the show, the breaking news segment. I just wanted to surprise him. I warned him, but I didn't show him. So it was a instant reaction type of thing. But of course, we bring you all the Carolina news that you need. Make sure you continue to follow us. Subscribe on YouTube to get all of our latest show information. And of course, you want to listen to us on your way to work. You want to listen to us while you're sitting at home enjoying a nice beverage. Find this on Spotify as well. Once again, my name is Nick Delahanty. That guy is Jordan Falls. Our emergency episode of the Talking Heels podcast is now complete. Let's go Heels.
Go Heels.